saying, "Oh Muse," of a complicated movie. This just isn't really the Odyssey. That's my main takeaway. This is not Homer's Odyssey. And I think this is the big problem I have with a lot of these remakes. And the Odyssey just proves it, is a lot of filmmakers don't have respect for the stuff that they're adapting. This is what Game of Thrones or how Song of Ice and Fire fans have been dealing with for years now, just filmmakers who think they know better than the text. And that's one of the problems with the Odyssey, is this approach that a lot of people have. In my last video, I brought up Emerald Fennell and her adaptation of Wuthering Heights, where it's not based on the book Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. It's based on Emerald's weird vibes that she got when she was a teenager. This feels like the vibes Christopher Nolan got after reading it the first time. One of the key things about the Odyssey that you just have to be aware of, and that the Odyssey and the Iliad are great illustrations of, is how different ancient morality, pre-Christian morality, is from today's. One of the things that you get when you read it for the first time, especially as like a college student, is like, wow, these people are heroes, but they're not my definition of hero. They're arrogant and entitled and kind of scary in like a very villainous sort of way. People who read the Iliad, people like Achilles and Agamemnon, the whole opening conflict, you're supposed to have sympathy for Achilles, but it's like, what? And so carrying to the Odyssey, Odysseus is supposed to be this extremely complicated character. The translation that most people read in school, I think up until now at least, the Richard Lattimore version describes him as the man of many ways, which of course is a great pun. He's the man who goes on all these adventures. He's a man of lies and deception and trickery. He's got a lot going on. He's a complicated person, and that's kind of the subtext of the thing. And this movie, but what this movie gets so annoyingly wrong, in my opinion, is that it doesn't act as if Homer knows what he is doing. It treats the Odyssey, like I said in my last video, my big fear was that they'll treat the Odyssey like it's just sort of a plot description on Wikipedia or a list of bullet points that you have to interpret for yourself. Homer wasn't an author per se, he's a poet. He might not even have existed, but very obviously the Odyssey was written by one guy who we call Homer, with a set of ideas that he wanted to convey, ideas and themes and messages and whatever. And this movie acts like that's not true. It acts as if Christopher Nolan knows better than Homer about the story that Homer was telling. My biggest piece of criticism is that Odysseus is not Odysseus. Odysseus is just sort of like this sad Vietnam vet who's constantly reflecting on the guilt of the past. And I don't like that. That's not who Odysseus is from Homer. Odysseus is the fox archetype. Odysseus is the charismatic, cunning trickster. Part of the fun of the poem is that you never quite know if he's lying about anything. The adventures all could be made up, and you're supposed to debate and discuss that. He tells different versions about his journeys to different people, and intentionally, that's ambiguous. Homer's doing something meaningful about that. And that's another reflection of the difference in morality. And because this movie takes the approach of just sort of flattening it into a basic modern morality, Odysseus feels bad about a lot of things that poem Odysseus never would have felt bad about. Or if he does, we leave it a little ambiguous. We don't know the mind of Odysseus. That's part of the thing. Instead, Odysseus is, like I said, a Vietnam vet, or in other places, just sort of generic hero. And I don't like that. Once again, if you're adapting this, the opportunity of adapting the Odyssey is that you can really delve into a different culture, a different mindset, a different set of values, and confront the audience with things that would really challenge us. There's all kinds of things from the poem about sacrifice, about the class dynamics, about the morality of war, about the workings of the gods that don't really make it into this movie, because rather than doing the actual challenging, interesting, to modern standards, subversive thing, by investigating that, it flattens everything into just sort of modern morality about like, Odysseus kind of looks out for the little guy in a way that Book Odysseus doesn't necessarily do. He never really tells any lies, which is very strange. He tells one lie and someone gets mad at him for it, but it's like, that's Odysseus' entire thing, is he might be lying about everything. And the Greeks thought that was cool. The Greek audience thought that was an interesting part of his character that they didn't necessarily condemn. And that's one of the other big problems with this movie, is it wants to talk about civilization. It wants to talk about the downfall of civilization. And this is one of the key areas where his refusal to be historically accurate really bites him, because we never, ever get to see that civilization at work. We get to see this weird, postmodern, vibey, brutalist reconstruction of it. It's very sort of blank and angular and geometric, and it's not really reflective of the vibrancy of the Greek world. So we're talking about this great civilization that's passing, and we never see it. And it also affects a more technical thing, but with the dialogue. Now, the dialect, the modern stuff like the mom and dad of it all, didn't bother me so much, actually. That was one of the things that sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, but it was never offensive or something. I would have preferred something else, but it was fine. But the problem is that this movie spams you with exposition. All of the expositional dialogue is very bad. They're constantly doing the thing where it's like, these characters should know this. At one point, Odysseus has to explain sacrifices to the gods to his wife, which is like, what? Why would he have to? She's been living here too, right? But the reason he has to do that is because it's not historically accurate. So you can't do show, don't tell. The immediate thing that comes to mind to me is the opening sequence, or the second opening sequence, concerning hobbits in the extended edition of Lord of the Rings, where we get this composite of narration from Bilbo, a conversation between Frodo and Gandalf on the cart, and then just visuals of them going through the Shire to Bag End. And that is a perfect world-building introduction segment. Everything you need to know about the Shire, you get from there. You learn immediately what kind of society it is. It's funny, these people are silly and kind of ignorant, but they're also just good-hearted and pastoral, and you kind of love it. It's like a nice place to be. The dialogue from the narration from Bilbo, there's a conceit, there's like an excuse as to why he's doing it. He's writing in his book. He's not having a random conversation or just talking to himself. The conversation between Gandalf and Bilbo is very naturalistic, but still sets us up to know what we should know going into the rest of the movie. Nolan can't do that because he can't depict the great civilization that he is in this movie mourning. So on this technical level of that, it makes exposition impossible. And then on the thematic level, the historical accuracy thing really bites this movie in the butt. And that's something I was wondering, honestly, was like, are we being too harsh with this criticism? It's like, a movie can be historically inaccurate like Braveheart, and it doesn't really affect the movie. Absolutely, it affects the movie. Very not good. Also, sometimes it just looks bad. Sometimes it's cool, sometimes it looks bad. Then there's the tone. This movie is oppressively bleak, and that isn't what the Odyssey is. The Odyssey is, it's like Lord of the Rings a lot. There are some very bleak and sad and desolate parts. There are some scary parts, but there are also very fun parts. In many ways, this is meant to be a contrast from the Iliad. The Iliad is a book about war. The Iliad is the place for this sort of bleak existential tone, whereas the Odyssey is we're resetting to peacetime. And so there's a lot more brightness and color and movement. The Iliad, you sit on a beach for 24 books. The Odyssey, you're going around to all kinds of different places. You're interacting with cool people. You're interacting with bad people. It's very lively. It's much more adventurous. But a lot of the ideas aren't from Homer. They are Nolan's impressions of the questions he got from reading Homer, I think. Then there's the gods. This movie is very bad with the gods. One of the things that is so important to Homer is the fact that the gods are people. And I think one of the important things to get out of the Greek worldview is that they associated the chaos and the disorder and danger of nature is sort of the embodiment of this chaos and disorder in the family of the gods. And so the gods kind of need to be people, and we need to see it. The human beings, interestingly enough, very rarely get insight into that. But it's important to what Homer is trying to say, that the audience gets a look behind the curtain, that we see Zeus as a person, Athena as a person, Poseidon as a person, Hera as a person. And we don't ever get that. Nolan wants to do this sort of very vague, abstract thing so he can make his point about divine providence or the unknowability or knowability of the whatever it is. It's not Homer. And at the end of the day, I would like to see Homer's Odyssey. I think if he had done an Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which is his own spin, not using the terms and locations, but, kind of inspired by the Odyssey, that would have been cool. This movie is sort of a deconstruction of the Homeric worldview, but the problem is, when was the last time we ever got a reconstruction of it? Most people's exposure to something like the Odyssey is dodging doing the readings in high school. So it would have been cool just to get not a deconstruction or a reconstruction, but just a construction of the Odyssey that respects what Homer wants to do with it. It makes certain choices that take the fun out of reading the poem. For example, Helen of Troy. Every time she appears in the Iliad and the Odyssey, she's very ambiguous what she likes and what she feels. In the book, when you meet her in Menelaus, their dynamic is kind of interesting and it leaves a lot of room for debate. And there's a way to bring that to the screen that they don't. Instead, Nolan makes the choice of interpretation for you that best fits his take on all of this. And it's just kind of like, oh, okay. That takes the fun away from it. Homer knows what he's doing. The authors or poets know what they're doing, and I would love more adaptations like Lord of the Rings that respect the author enough, the intentions of the person who made the thing, and just tell their story. Somebody who likes the Odyssey, not for their impression of it, but for what it is. And I think, once again, that attitude is what will save cinema. Just an appreciation for the past and a desire to get other people to engage with it. This is not that. This is a great showing for Nolan. This is a great Christopher Nolan movie. It's definitely in the upper tier of his. And if I had never read the Odyssey, it might be one of my favorite of his movies. Unfortunately, I've read the Odyssey. I really love the Odyssey. And its representation of how we've stagnated and how we're not going to get consistent, good, or great stories told anymore if we keep cutting ourselves off from the past and thinking that we know better. We've been putting the past on trial and we've been condemning it a lot lately. That is the essence of the last 10 years, that the past needs to die and we should kill it. If we can get away from that, we might actually get to a healthier place, not just in the world of movies, but in our culture and our civilization as well, which I think really, really needs it. But that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear what you have to say, agree or disagree. And if you like the video, like, subscribe, share it. Thank you, and God bless.